Hello and welcome to episode 49 of Real Life Ghost Stories.
How you all doing?
I need to start this week's episode by issuing a very public apology.
Okay.
I would like to publicly apologise for eating an M&M on an episode of the podcast.
Well, I'd just like to acknowledge your apology and say that's very big of you, because there's plenty of people that eat M&Ms on podcasts and don't feel the need to apologise. So I'd like to congratulate you for being so professional.
The reason I'm apologising is because somebody left a 5-star review, but also saying please don't ever eat on the podcast again. And you know, I genuinely am really sorry, because I hate when people chew near me or chew loudly, and it makes me want to punch them square in the jaw. So I appreciate that having my little mouth chewing in your ear holes must have been a horrible experience, and I apologise from the bottom of my heart. Are you ready to thank our Patreon subscribers?
I'm always ready to thank our patrons.
We would like to thank Ash Mearns,
Tasha Dower,
Jamie Marie Spalding,
Nicole Mason-Brock,
Todd Snellgrove,
Rachel Mittens,
Sean Burnham,
Julia Wagner,
Thea Rossini,
Chloe Anderson,
Brianna Oregon,
Tori,
Debbie Robertson.
I was hoping I'd get this one. Smack-a-lack-attack.
Yay! Robin Helton,
Kayla Coughlin.
Kaya Coughlin.
Kayla.
Kayla.
You said Kayla Coughlin.
I literally have it in front of me. Mirandia Berthold,
Jennifer.
Alexandra McCusker,
And Stacey Ross.
God, why am I literally not able to read? I'm sorry if I butchered your name. I do apologise.
I think you actually did a really good job. It was only me with Kayla Coughlin.
Are you ready for our film review this week?
I am actually, yeah.
Our film review this week is Before I Wake. Before I Wake was released in 2016. It has 6.2 out of 10 on IMDb and 61% on Rotten Tomatoes. Would you like a synopsis?
Give me a synopsis.
Foster parents Mark and Jesse welcome 8-year-old Cody into their home. The boy tells Jesse that he's terrified to fall asleep, but she assumes it's just a natural fear for a young child. The couple become startled when their dead biological son suddenly appears in their living room. To their surprise, Cody's dreams can magically become real, but so can his nightmares. Mark and Jesse must now uncover the truth behind Cody's mysterious ability before his imagination harms them all. Before you even say anything, that is the worst written synopsis I've ever copied and pasted from the internet. Startled when their dead biological son appears in their sitting room is an understatement.
It's a massive understatement, I would say.
I would be more than startled, and equally, to their surprise, Cody's dreams can magically come true. I would be more than surprised if that happened to me. So,
astonished?
Freaked
Bedazzled?
out? Bedazzled. I'd probably be noping the fuck out of there. What were your thoughts on this film?
Okay, so that noise was me, by the way, not some weird demon. That was just me getting my ref. I think that this film had the potential to be extremely good. However, it just got good, in my opinion.
It just got good.
It was just good.
Oh, it was just good.
Yeah, I don't know what I said.
I was so into this for the first hour, maybe. The little kid in it is the little kid from Room. If you've seen the film Room, based on the book by Emma Donoghue, he is the cutest kid you've ever seen in your life. And he's not like a freaky ass little kid. And there were so many elements of it that were traumatizing to watch.
Yeah, and really well done as well, I think.
Yeah, so there was this little kid comes along, his dreams obviously come to life, and in the beginning it's a really positive thing. So he's dreaming about butterflies, and he dreams about their dead son, and then the mother, who is a total bitch, starts fucking drugging the kid to make him sleep more so she can see her son loads. But then their dead son that she sees in the dream, he becomes really freaky, and then there's a monster.
I just want to say, her dead son is freaky anyway.
He is a bit freaky.
That kid's got a really freaky face.
Yeah, he does.
And they're just because the kid can only imagine what he's seen and heard. So when you first see the son, he doesn't talk. So they obviously just said to the kid, just smile. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, he is freaky when he smiles.
Oh my gosh.
His face is frozen in
That's
that
the
smile.
kind of kid that needs your drop kicking, I think.
Yeah, I would drop kick him down the stairs, even if he was my biological child.
So the big issue with this, though, was that they made the fatal error of showing the monster.
Because when the monster was in the periphery, in the background, lurking around, it was horrific. I was like, what the fuck is that? What is that? It looked like a grey. It was awful. It was really quite scary. And then when it like whispered in the child's ear, it was really scary. And then you saw it and it was like, oh, this actually isn't scary anymore.
The thing is, without saying too much, because I actually don't want to spoil this, because I do think you should watch it, you kind of needed to see the monster for the reveal to make sense.
Yeah, you did, unfortunately.
Which was a shame.
I also think, so I'm going to give a spoiler, not for the whole film. Jesse's husband, Mark, gets literally consumed by this monster. And can we discuss the fact that at no point was she upset about this fact?
Yeah, she wasn't bothered by the death of her husband at all.
She just carried on with her life.
Yeah.
Like, she just was like, well, fuck it, move on. It was just really weird, considering, like, this man that you are in love with, they have a very positive relationship, gets consumed by a big demon being dreamed up by this child that you fostered after your own biological son has died, and you don't give a solitary fuck.
And actually, I know we shouldn't rate parents, because that's really out of order, but definitely the better parent. At the start.
Yeah, the dad
he was actually like, he won that foster kid round, doing all the right things, encouraging his wife not to drug their son, and all these positive things, and then he dies, she don't care.
She really doesn't care, though. You know, she's sort of, you'd think that she'd have some sort of like, no! Even when it's happening, she's just like, oh, that's a shame.
Whoops.
I'll carry on drugging my foster child now.
Maybe that's why the adjectives in the synopsis are so tame.
Lackluster.
Yeah, because she's quite lackluster as well.
I mean, she's very lackluster as an actress, I think, as well. So yeah, I thought the film actually, I'm not going to give away the spoilers, but the monster essentially is actually very clever at the end, but just badly executed. And it's really sad.
But the only thing is that it's only badly executed because you need to see the monster
for it to make sense,
and it sees the monster, and then you lose it. And the more I thought about this film, the more I actually think I actually enjoyed it. I actually quite liked it, and I thought it was clever and it was logical. And if that was the truth, it would make sense.
I think if it had a stronger cast and they held off on showing the monster until later, or maybe only had it on briefly, maybe there was too much of the monster. I don't really know.
Yeah, potentially.
It probably would have been an excellent film, because it's kind of got that Babadook feel about it in terms of the kind of underlying themes that are going on. The more I thought about it, the more I thought this could have been a great film. What would you give it out of 5?
I'll give it a solid 4. I do think it's a good film, and I feel like the mistake that they made, they had to make in order to make the ending right. And I thought the ending was clever, and I thought it was logical. And I think you have to give them praise for that.
I'm going to also give it a 4.
Wow.
I know, because I think the beginning of it really gripped me, and I thought it was really clever. And I was thinking about it actually during the week, and I was thinking about, imagine how horrific the world would be if my dreams came to life. The weird shit that I dream about. I had a dream during the week of a rabid otter trying to attack me. Like, imagine if I'm dead asleep in bed and you're running around the house with this rabid otter.
Oh, this would be the problem, because you're always asleep.
It's true.
And I don't sleep, so anything you dreamt nice would be mine, which would be cool. Anything you dreamt horrific would get me instantly.
Yeah, and
because you and Bim both sleep as well. Imagine what Bim dreams about. Oh my gosh!
And the thing is, I only ever wake up to do this podcast, so you would be dead. So are you ready for some stories this week?
Okay, I just want to caveat this by saying that I have been playing horror games for the last 4 days, 3 of which has led to 3 of those days I've gone straight to bed after. I am in a fragile mental state, so I am hoping that these are not going to be too scary.
Today's episode is sponsored by HelloFresh. I cannot keep risking life and limb in this zombie apocalypse to go to the grocery store. If only there was an easier way. Wait, what's this conveniently placed leaflet? With HelloFresh, you get farm fresh, pre-portioned ingredients and seasonal recipes delivered right to your doorstep. Skip trips to the grocery store and the impending zombie doom and count on HelloFresh to make home cooking easy, fun and affordable. That's why it's America's #1 meal kit. You know what'll really take your mind off the flesh-hungry horde? Fast and fresh recipes. HelloFresh's latest line of meals featuring robust flavours and filling portions are ready in less than 15 minutes. Enjoy taste and quality done quick with recipes like falafel power bowls, seared steak and potatoes with béarnaise sauce, or Southwest pork and bean burritos. And let's face it, in the zombie apocalypse, we gotta cook smart and we gotta cook fast. And you know what? We don't all want to be out there fighting our way to the store, so you can stock up on snacks, sides, desserts and more at HelloFresh Market. Simply add these staples and sweets to your weekly order and they'll arrive on your doorstep along with your meals. More yummy food, less mortal peril. Fictional zombie apocalypse aside, I have actually used HelloFresh in real life for years and I love it. I used them long before I ever advertised for them. It saved me so much time, so much money and so much food waste. I'm also not a very good cook, so it allows me to cook and eat better. Go to hellofresh.com/reallifeghoststories22 and use the code reallifeghoststories22 for 22 free meals plus free shipping. That's hellofresh.com/reallifeghoststories22 and use code reallifeghoststories22 for 22 free meals plus free shipping. Oh no, what is that? Oh no, it was meant to be fictional. It wasn't meant to be real. The first one I think you'll enjoy then.
Okay.
Genuinely enjoy.
Okay.
Not in a sadist kind of way. I think you'll enjoy it, ha ha ha, as you're crying under the table. Our story number 1 comes from our good friend Hobnoblin.
Hey.
The reason I said Hobnoblin is because I actually can't pronounce his name because it's Finnish.
Okay.
So I'm sorry, I'm not even going to try and butcher your real name because it's just not going to happen. I've cut out some bits of this story for once, only because it was like a film review and stuff. Or not a film review, a film recommendation, so it didn't really feel relevant. But the rest of it, I think you will enjoy.
Okay, good. I'm looking forward to this.
So, as I said on Patreon, here's my contribution. It will most likely be long and rambling since English isn't my native language, and there's so many different things I want to tell you. Don't worry though, they're not long stories. I have a bunch of little happenings that have given me a scare or a feeling of unease. Nothing paranormal, just normal scares, I think. Okay, let's get to it. Little backstory about me first for context. I'm a male, 5'10". No, well, I am, but let's not do that. 28 years old and from Finland, where cold and darkness can spark up your imagination to a whole other level. We have our own folklore, as do all Scandinavian and Nordic countries, and it's actually pretty darn interesting. I suggest looking into that. I, however, wasn't raised on those beliefs, as they are mostly on the northern parts of the country and I hail from the east side. But there's still plenty of weird to go around for us too. So most of Finland is covered in forests and lakes. Even the biggest cities have their own forest areas, which I find nice since nature is really close to my heart. I was born and raised in a rural town where there wasn't too much to do, and being a kid in a time where technology is just starting to get better and bigger, me and my friends would find ourselves trekking in the woods almost every day from like 6 years old onwards. We were always told to be wary when going around the woods and not to get too far so that we wouldn't get lost. Naturally, we didn't always listen, being little kids, but I never actually got lost. We were also advised not to whistle while in the forest, and listen if someone else whistles there. Of course, we did it anyway sometimes, but it always was in the back of my mind when doing so. I never encountered anything while whistling, nor did I hear any whistles from the forest. I did hear stories though. People hearing whistles while they know they are alone in the woods, or in a group while everyone insisted it was not them. It would sound just like a human whistling, but not a specific tune, just a plain whistle. If you do it yourself, it would answer. If you continued, it would get closer. You'd begin to hear it getting closer, forest bed crunching beneath its heavy footsteps. Then it would be near you. You might see it, or it would stay hidden somewhere close, or even run away in some cases. There's a huge possibility that you're in danger if it gets close. You see, apparently, bears can whistle. Not just like humans, but very similar. Where we blow air out while whistling, bears do it inwards. try it. It sounds quite the same as the normal style. Most of the time, bears stay away from humans. It has been said that they see us more than we see them. I've seen aerial pictures and videos of forests where berry pickers haven't noticed it, but a bear can be somewhere close by, just doing its thing. My youngest cousin is somewhere around 15 years younger than me. Good kid, always has been. But when he started to learn to speak, he gave me and my older relatives quite uneasy feelings. My other cousin, his brother, died when he was just 2 or 3, somewhere around there. We went to visit his grave one time shortly after the burial, and after being mostly silent and thoughtful looking, the youngling spoke up. He just said, "Brother is watching us." We all seemed a bit shocked, but seemingly tried to play it off as him coping with the situation. Other times we were on a bit of a hike somewhere in the forest, heading deeper and deeper, as we were on our way to have a very Finnish feast of sausages grilled over an open fire. It was a pretty dark and dense area of the forest, when he spoke up, again having been silent for most of the time. "No one will find us here," he said calmly. Nothing else. I say that both of those cases were just him picking up things that people have said and just repeating them. As for the watching, I reckon he meant as an angel, since most of my relatives are more or less religious. As for the woods, I like to think that it was just something from telly or out of context adult conversation he overheard. I don't know, but I still feel a bit funny when I'm thinking back to it. I was in my parents' car going to my hometown with my dad. He was driving. It was a winter evening and it was getting fairly dark. It was a bigger stretch of the road, but it was mostly empty throughout. After a long time of not seeing anyone, we see a car coming on the opposite side of a straight patch of road. It was so dark that only the headlights were visible. We drove like we normally would, as did the other driver. It was a bit of a downhill for us, and the road dipped a bit, just enough for the other car to disappear behind a crest. And it literally did. It was out of sight for like 1.5 seconds, but in that time it managed to disappear. Mind you, the speed limit on that part of the road is 80 kilometers an hour during winter time, and the other drivers seemed to match that. There was a tiny road where it could have turned from the main road, but the thing is, at that speed during winter, it would have been really impossible. Also, when we drove past the tiny road, there was no signs of anyone driving there. Since it was winter, there would have been visible tyre tracks, but there were none. Both of us saw the car. Both of us set it out since it was so long after the last one we had seen. Both of us checked the tiny road. But where did it go? It has been 6 or 7 years now and we still haven't figured it out. Most of my immediate family and relatives live pretty close to where we lived. We would visit each other pretty often, and since it wasn't that far, the trip was usually made on foot or by bike. From 6 years old onwards to the time my grandmother died, I would visit her pretty occasionally. And like I said, she lived only a bit over 1 kilometre away, so it was not too bad of a walk, even for a kid like me. What did make the walk more or less harder and dull was the fact that living in a rural Finnish town means no streetlights and darkness basically 3/4 of the day during winter. I'm not afraid of the dark per se, but it does make me a bit uneasy at times. It always has. The thing about not using a flashlight is that it makes you focus on specific spots too much and your mind is more likely to start running wild. Also, peeking over your shoulder is something you should not do, no matter how much you feel like it. It just makes everything feel so much scarier. I'm walking to my grandmother's place. The road is dirt all the way in the middle of the forest. The last stretch is the one that gives me the most hope since I can see a glimpse of light at the end of the road, but it's always the most unnerving since it's the most dense part. You can only see pitch black all over the sides. The forest is so dense there. Occasionally the sky can be seen amongst the treetops, but it's so dark it barely makes any difference. It's winter, not too cold. I'm somewhere around 8 to 10 years old. Snow helps a bit with the seeing part. I can see where the road meets the forest. I get to the last stretch and see the tiny glimpse of light. Not too long to go anymore. And that's when I hear it. From the darkness behind me, something is making a sound. It sounds like footsteps. I listen more closely, not turning around, and it's running. It has more than 2 legs. I can't stand the urge and I peek over my shoulder, still walking, although it was so dark that I couldn't see anything anyway. The footsteps slow down and get quieter. I calculate that I probably won't be able to outrun it, whatever it is, so I just keep on walking. I continue and it starts running. I peek, it seems to stop. I walk, it runs, I peek, it stops. After a couple more times of this, I can't take it anymore and turn around to see a black shape running towards me against the slightly whiter snow. I freeze, not from the cold, but from fear. It just keeps running, and finally it gets to me galloping at full speed. And it was my cousin's goddamn dog, who, by the way, looks just like a wolf. He was pretty intimidating if you didn't know him and quite hard to befriend, but I'd managed to do that. He was a pure baby all the way once you got to know him. I walked with him the rest of the way, gave him a hug and gestured for him to go home, and he did. So a couple of shorter things, theories or something like that. Sorry that this is so long, but to be fair, I did warn you. I can't remember if you've mentioned it on some episode, but seeing dead people in crowds, etc. I've done that 2 times. Of course I can't prove it. Probably was just someone with extreme likeness of facial features. The first one was my first girlfriend's mother, a couple of years after she passed away. The second one was that earlier mentioned cousin. I only caught a glimpse of both of them for a second or two in a crowd, so I can't be too sure. These things happened a couple of years apart from each other. In some episode, I think it was a Patreon episode, Emma mentioned that you hear things when you're about to fall asleep and when you're about to wake up. It happens to me too almost every time. I've grown used to it, but sometimes it gets a bit bothersome, especially as I live alone. Again, some other episode, I really do binge your content, you mentioned epilepsy in some context. It made me think that could some of the earlier possession cases and exorcisms be explained by epilepsy? The thing about that condition is that it has many forms, and I've witnessed it firsthand, the kind that comes when you sleep. My cousin, same age as me, had epilepsy attacks frequently when he was younger. I saw him have attacks multiple times when I was at their place having sleepovers. Even though I knew what was going on, it was pretty freaky to wake up to him bolting up from the bed and just staring at different things and objects and make not quite normal moans, groans and growls. Sometimes even some kind of odd tries to get some words out. He would stare at me too, many times, but not quite with the stare that you would normally have. It was very animalistic, raw, mostly emotionless, with some hints of menace from time to time. But as I said, it was nothing I ever was scared of since I knew what it was. But I can easily see how more severe cases could be passed as a possession. And that was story number 1. What were your thoughts?
Fascinating about the bears being able to whistle. Reason not to whistle back, even if you are freaked out.
See, I loved this because it's really interesting, because while they're like little spooky stories, there's an explanation for all of them. So it's something so different to what we've done previously. Who knew really bears could fucking whistle?
Yeah, I know.
So I wouldn't. Does that put the Whistler stories in a different context?
Potentially, because there's bears in America, isn't there?
Yeah, there are.
Yeah. Thank goodness they didn't whistle back.
I know, because that I would not want to get eaten by a bear.
Yeah. See, you know when you alluded to the fact that in Finnish law you don't whistle back.
Mm-hmm.
You were very clever.
I know, aren't I?
Because
I had read that story already.
You made it seem like there was some kind of spooky reason for not whistling back, but actually it's just because you might encourage a bear attack.
You might get eaten by a bear.
Wow. I like the dog story as well.
I loved it because it's so intense, and then it's like, oh, it's only a baby.
Yeah. But yeah, Finland, it fascinates me, but then at the same time, I can't be doing with that darkness and the cold.
Yeah.
I don't know how Hobnoblin does it. I guess if you've grown up there.
I guess if you've grown up there, it's different.
And they live a very outside life by the sounds of things, which is cool. That little kid, though. No.
Yeah, but kids are weird. Kids just are weird, and they say weird things, like...
No one will find us here.
Oh my God.
Get lost.
I'd be like, right, boot you into the middle of the wilderness. I'd start whistling frantically. Come on, bears. Come and get him. It's a free little lunch for you. But yeah, I thought it was something different to start the show. You know, they're not the type of stories that we normally share, because people are like, oh my God, this terrible paranormal thing happened to me and I don't understand it. This is like, yeah, weird things happen. And I also have to say, I did particularly like the last bit about the weirdness of epilepsy and
really weird.
The weirdness of... especially acquired brain injuries, I think, as well, can be so strange. I know, so on the podcast, What the Fuck is in This Book, they talked about possession, and they talked about encephalitis as being like one of those things that's really that's often mistaken as like psychosis or potentially possession and stuff. And I've actually experienced encephalitis firsthand twice in my life, and let me tell you, that shit is fucking horrific.
Yeah.
Like, that shit is possession territory. The first time I saw somebody with encephalitis, when I was in hospital with her, visiting her, I brought her a copy of The Exorcist as a joke because she looked like she was possessed when she had her first seizure. And when I brought in the copy of The Exorcist, we had our laptop and we were like, oh, let's watch The Exorcist. Fucking priest came in, doing his rounds. We're sitting there watching The Exorcist, laughing. But anyway, that's beside the point. So I think it's really important to like talk about these things as well, you know, and like, because we think about epilepsy and seizures and stuff as people just sort of like shaking. That sounds like I'm delegitimizing it. Just shaking on the ground, foaming at the mouth. I don't mean to say just, but actually there's lots of different types of seizures that people can have.
Imagine if you had no medical comprehension of what that was, though.
Oh, it must be.
Like, that would account for some of the historical stuff, I would have thought.
Horrific. Absolutely terrifying. So story number 2 today is...
I'm guessing it's not as nice as that.
It's a very strange story, actually. It's a story that has been on my mind for quite a while, and we've just gotten to it chronologically. It's very strange. Very strange. And the person asked for me not to use their last name. I never do anyway, but I think that's really significant that they've specifically requested not to have their last name used. So this is Allah's story. Are you ready?
Okay.
I've had many strange experiences over the years when I lived in my childhood home. I especially experienced the paranormal from when I was very little up to my high school years. Only until I moved out 3 years ago, I've only had a couple of experiences that might have been chalked up as figments of the imagination and drowsy eyes. The strangest paranormal experience I can recall took place in my freshman year of high school. The years before, even before my first year of high school, I'd been interested in learning about my Jewish heritage and ancestors. On my mother's side, my great-great-grandmother had converted to Protestantism for her husband, and in actuality kept her Jewishness a secret from her family up until she raised my grandmother and my great-uncle. By my freshman year, I had more independence and researched in my spare time and began to attend Shabbat services at a synagogue. I especially became interested in researching Orthodox Judaism and Chadism, more religious Jewish sects. I'm not a religious person, yet tradition fascinates me. One day, after a nice hour of working out at a gym, I went into the steam room. Something unexplainable occurred. When the steam was being released naturally into the room, my vision blurred, and suddenly I was in a different place. The room was dark and dank and grey, and the steam was chemicals filling a gas chamber. In that fearful realisation, it disappeared and my surroundings were the steam room. I felt shaky and out of breath. Some time passed. It could have been 1 month or so. Again, unexplainable paranormal happenings. I was in the shower, completely fine and relaxed. It was later in the evening. I blinked, and a young man, who couldn't be older than 19 years, was smiling at me, also naked and up against my body. It wasn't lecherous, but it was caring and happy. He had prayer curls that ultra-religious Jewish boys and men wear, a long curl on each side of their face. He was taller than me by several inches and skinny, had brown curly hair and brown eyes. He had a smooth face, so maybe too young to grow a beard. He moved against me as if to hug me, and he acted like he knew me. And the next second he was gone. I was stunned and really I was uncomfortable. But for a strange reason I wasn't frightened. I don't know if he was familiar or unfamiliar, yet I didn't know anyone like him. And I quickly left the shower. A couple of days later, again after a shower, I was clothed and laying on my stomach in bed with my feet up as I flipped through a book. I felt a presence wash over me, and I turned my face to the right, and there he is again, smiling affectionately, laying next to me, watching, stroking my hair and my cheek. I didn't feel scared. He never gave off a dangerous vibe. He was just caring, and it was really strange. I don't remember if he was wearing clothes, but I think at this time he was, and then he was gone. For a week or two afterwards, I felt a familiar presence watching over me. He felt a little playful and very affectionate, like a loving friend. According to Kabbalist Jewish mystics, a soul is reborn many times until they can finally fulfill God's role for them. I can't say for sure if we'd known each other in a past life, but he felt familiar, and he seemed to believe that he knew me intimately. And as quickly as he entered my life, one day he was gone. Every so often he entered my mind, and I may have felt a presence in the room with me, but never as strong and persistent for attention. I haven't felt him since that month of my freshman year of high school, but I continue my Jewish studies and research of my heritage.
Interesting story.
I know, right?
Yeah.
Isn't that mad? I've got lots of thoughts about this one, but what do you think first?
I think you should probably go first, actually.
Okay, so I've thought about this story a lot, but I think there's something really powerful about your own heritage.
Absolutely.
And I think there's something really powerful about researching your culture and your cultural heritage. And obviously, I'd imagine I'm not Jewish, so I can't begin to understand how it must feel to have a cultural heritage that's wrapped up in so much trauma. As a Jewish person, I can imagine that your idea of the Holocaust must be so painful. And I wonder if there's a really distinct connection between these things that he saw and the research of his Jewish heritage. So like, whether it was paranormal or whether it was his brain establishing a connection to that part of his life that maybe he hadn't experienced before.
Yeah.
So Jewishness was so new for him that it almost seems like his brain was potentially creating this knowing of something that he always knew but never knew.
Yeah.
Does that, I don't know if I'm explaining that very well.
Maybe it's just like the more you research, the more you unlock, and your ancestors are able to channel. Do you see what I mean? Because it feels like almost a paternal figure, the gentleman with the curls, doesn't it? Or like a fraternal figure.
But I wonder if it's somebody caught in time. Like he's not actually seeing a ghost, he's seeing somebody that's caught in a moment. But he just happens to be the one on the other end of that moment for that period of time. So when he sees the person like naked in the shower or whatever, he said that he moves the naked man in the shower, moves to hold him, and he acted like he knew him. It wasn't like he saw him from like a distance or he saw him walk past the mirror or whatever. This was like he went to touch him, he went to hold him. So it was like he's getting this snapshot of time and being in the bed beside him, stroking his hair. Like that's a real intimate thing to do.
Yeah.
It's just it really made me think.
Yeah, it is interesting. Very interesting. What you unlock, what you tap into when you do research and stuff like that, and what it opens your mind up to. It's very interesting. I thought it was a her, actually.
Did you?
Yeah. But obviously not.
Oh, I thought it was a boy.
I just missed out on the cues.
No, I don't know. I don't know if Allah is a girl's name or a boy's name.
No, neither do I.
Oh, interesting. I don't know. Can you please let me know if you're a boy or a girl? Just, this happens all the time and people always message me and they go, I'm a girl or I'm a boy. That's really interesting. I don't know.
Yeah. Because I thought it was like, I mean, I could be well wrong if this is a bloke, like you said, but I felt like it was the intimacy in the shower was like as if it was a young couple. It
does sound like a young couple to me. And he said he felt a little playful and very affectionate, like a loving partner. I left out the bit that says who also was hoping to get lucky, strangely enough. So there's obviously a sexuality thing to it. And the
stroking in the hair in the bed is very either partnery or parenty, I think.
And I think that freshman year, what's freshman year of high school? That's like first year of high school. So you're young, probably going through puberty, probably exploring or trying to figure out your own sexuality. So there's so many weird links going on here. There's like the exploration of Jewish heritage. There's like the
exploration of self.
Yeah. And what that means to you. And I wonder if somewhere the whole being in the steam room bit and feeling as though they were being transported back to his gas chamber, like, is that linked to learning more and more about your heritage and feeling a connection to, you know, the plight of those people who went before you and who died because of what you're identifying with now?
Extremities of emotion, isn't it?
Yeah, I wonder if it is.
Feel.
Story number 3, you ready?
Yeah, these have been 2 really different stories so far.
I know, it's a weird episode, sorry. I am doing them chronologically in that those were just the two that came next. Are you ready for Esmeralda's
Yeah, I'm
story?
feeling really calm, actually.
I know, I
Which
thought
is
you
probably
would.
calm before a storm, right? No, you work.
I've got a story from Esmeralda.
Yep.
And then I've got a story from Ross to finish things off. So 2 short stories to finish today's episode.
Okay.
That sound good?
Yep. Sounds great to me.
I'll first start by saying that as kids, my sister and I did not get along. We constantly fought, rarely talked to each other nicely, and never hugged. I'd been sleeping in my room, and for a few nights I could feel something watching me. Being a kid, I was too scared to look and just took protection under my blanket. One night, curiosity got the better of me, and I looked. I saw 3 dark figures, which were almost transparent. I noped the fuck out and went straight to my parents' room, but didn't tell them what happened. A couple of nights later, my sister came into my room sobbing in the middle of the night. She crawled into my bed and told me that the men kept staring at her and she couldn't take it anymore. I slept on the couch for months, chose a different room in the house as my room, and I now, as a 21-year-old, refuse to ever sleep upstairs and still get a bad feeling when I even go upstairs. I've had other smaller things happen, but this is the most memorable of mine. The next one is my dad's story. He believes that anger and arguing brings in evil spirits. When he lived in an apartment with my mum when they were younger, their neighbours fought constantly. He said that he saw a dark, transparent man with a cowboy hat, a long trench coat and long hair. He said he never felt anything so dark and he knew it was real. I was reminded of this by the Man in the Hat episode. So that's Esmeralda's story. That's it, very short. I'm not going to go on to Ross's story just yet because I want to give each story the attention it deserves. So what are your thoughts?
The 3 people men in the room is rank. And when I was a kid, we moved, when I was shared a room with my brother for the longest time, and then my parents converted the study downstairs in our house so that I could actually sleep downstairs. And it was right by the front door, and it took me, as a younger person, it took me a good 6 months to get used to the fact that nobody was going to break into the house. And I used to, without fail, about 1 o'clock in the morning, I used to go upstairs, sleep on the floor in my parents' room, come back down, so on. This went on.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and just that fear of not wanting to be in that room at night time was really strong, even though I had nothing like that experience at all. It was just a mental thing with me where I thought someone was going to break in when I was asleep and that they come to me first. When actually, in reality, if they saw someone was in the room, they'd probably just go somewhere else, wouldn't they?
Yeah.
But I just couldn't get over that, and I know what that fear is like. So it must have been 10 times worse for Esmeralda. That's her name, right?
Yeah.
Because of actually seeing something in that room, totally understand it, not wanting to go back in there. On the dad's thing about energy,
Yeah.
it would make sense though, wouldn't it, I guess? If you think about it, this idea that, like the idea that spirits feed on energy, if you are creating a negative energy yourself, it would open the possibility of more dark things coming in if they're feeding on energy, right? Because there would be more energy in the atmosphere.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it makes sense.
And if you're in a couple that's a really toxic, horrible, dark relationship, it's not even just going to be full of anger, it's going to be full of hatred and resentment and all those like nasty things that happen in bad relationships. So it makes sense. One more. Are you ready?
I don't know, you look on your face says I shouldn't be.
And this story comes from Ross, so thank you, Ross. I used to date someone who lived with her mother and 2 sisters in a detached house in a rural part of Ireland. I would drive to her place along winding forested roads at all hours of the day and night, a considerable distance from where I lived. The quickest way to her place was through a really lonely, creepy series of routes with lurching trees and yawning fields on either side and little to no light along the roads for most of the journey. On this particular night when I arrived at her place, I passed between 2 tall white pillars with the name of the house emblazoned on it, which I will not disclose here out of respect. The driveway was long, unlit and lined with overgrown bushes on both sides. Before you arrived at the house, which had a makeshift roundabout with an island of overgrown hedging at the centre of the parking area out front. Leaving my car and going inside the house, greeted by her, we began a pleasant night of movie watching and lazing around, just happy in each other's company. Her father had died when she was 8. Her 2 closest friends ended their own lives at 18, and her entire world was shattered by all of this. The house set me on edge. as stern, sepia-toned photographs of her father stared down at you from the walls and shelves in every room. An oppressive sadness hit me, just being there with her. But after we finished watching movies and eating, just having fun, we made our way upstairs, trying to keep quiet on our way across the groaning wooden floors as everyone else in the house was asleep. With my overnight bag in hand, we kissed a peck before she slipped into her bedroom to dress for bed, gesturing to me to go to the spare room at the far end of the landing and prepare for bed myself, where she would join me later, as her mother disapproved. I turned and started to walk down this long, creaky wooden landing to the room I would be staying in that night, a single light bulb lighting the way, which darkened to almost total blackness by the time I reached the door to that bedroom. Strangely, the door was already open. There was no light on in the room, and a big old stuffed teddy bear sat lopsided at one corner, peering across at me.
No.
Illuminated only by the slightly silvery moonlight outside the window that did nothing to break the darkness in the room. I then reached forward and groped the empty space ahead of me into the night, looking for the bedside lamp. And I screamed, when against my skin, from the blackness, I felt a shuddering, hairy, fleshy mass against my skin. I shut the door and stayed on the couch downstairs by myself that night, but didn't sleep at all. The next day I asked my ex if she had a dog, and she said, "Oh, we only ever had one, Benson. He died up in that room after he got into the bins and ate a chicken bone that punctured his organs." The last thing I wanted to do was ask the girl to talk about death after the plethora of loss she already had in her heart, but I asked her one more question, leaving it at that. The room I was going to sleep in. She said, "Yeah, that was the room my dad died in. Same bed too, actually. Benson was his dog, and sometimes Mum says they're both still up there."
No.
I can deal with poltergeists, seeing ghostly figures, man in the hat, blah blah blah. I can deal with all of that.
I can't.
What I can't deal with is an actual fleshy something that you can tangibly touch and feel as a real creature in that room. That's not something I can deal with.
No. I was freaked out by the teddy bear, though, to be honest with you.
I saw your face at that bit and I was like, good lord. We have a ghost podcast and you're here going, fuck off, a teddy bear. No, absolutely. Oh, worst story I've ever heard.
I don't know how I feel about being made to sleep in that room. I guess it was just an afterthought for the girl, though, wasn't it?
Yeah, because if it's your house, it's your house, isn't it? You're not going to go, we're going to put you in the haunted room tonight. You know, you don't really think about things in that regard, do you?
No.
Especially if it's your own house. You don't be like, oh, this is the room that really freaks everyone out. Or this room where my dead dad is.
Yeah. And I guess I always sleep in the room where my granddad died anyway, so I haven't really thought about it like that.
Do you?
Yeah. Now that you come to mention it.
Well, won't be sleeping there anymore. You'll be back on your parents' floor at 1 o'clock in the morning.
Not my parents' house at my grandma's.
I know, at your grandma's.
Yeah.
That is
revelations on air.
How do you feel about that, Dan? Tell us.
Well, nothing's ever happened in there, so it's all grand, really. I'm not really too bothered. It just occurred to me that was the case, actually.
So that's the thing. That's exactly it. Like, you just don't think about it, do you? That's not forever tarred as, oh, that's the room that someone died in. You can't go in there. You just get on with it.
You know what was the worst thing about that room?
What?
There's a picture of me up in the room. I found it really disturbing.
Why is there a picture of you up in the room?
There's a picture of me all over the house.
Is there?
No.
Cute.
There's more pictures of Joe now. There used to be.
Oh,
Joe keeps buying my grandma pictures of him for her birthday and for Christmas and stuff like that.
Where's he buying all these pictures of himself from?
From the photographer that takes pictures of him on trains. He's got his own photographer.
Oh, that follows me around taking pictures of him on trains. Yeah. Anyway, this is completely irrelevant.
That room, the actually touching something like you said, I don't know how I feel about that. Because even when I was nodding off earlier when I had a nap, I was aware of the fact that my feet were uncovered. It was freaking me out.
That is, I have to say, I'm getting much better at it. Like, it doesn't really bother me that much anymore. I can sleep without the blankets on. It used to be that I literally wouldn't sleep with like a toe out of the bed in case something came and grabbed me and dragged me out of the bed. And that's from watching Paranormal Activity, though, which is completely different. But I don't really mind anymore. It doesn't really bother me. I feel like this podcast has made me more of a believer, but also stronger.
I feel like it's got nothing to do with that. I think it's more the fact that I'm in the bed next to you and you know that if anything's going to happen, it's going to happen to me first.
Yeah, that's true. And also, if Bim gets into bed with me, then she'll just fight anybody who comes to attack me, so it's fine. Do you want some reviews?
Yeah, let's have some reviews.
So we've got 3 new reviews. We've got a review from Abhilasha Dake, I think it is, which is entitled Just Can't Stop. I started listening to this podcast, not sure what to expect, but my mind has been blown. I'm in love with Emma's narration and just can't get enough of Dan's reactions and far-reaching theories, which somehow end up making the most sense to me. Banned from the podcast.
No, you are the kind of listener
Don't
we need.
tell Dan that he makes sense. Don't do that.
To be fair, the story about the scrolls never made it to air, so
No,
that's the only really weird one.
I got that's your only weird theory.
Yeah.
Just that one.
Yeah.
The next one comes from Dominic JP. How do you select 6 stars? Chemistry of Dan and Emma is great. Love that you get a great well-read story and commentary with background research to help you form your own opinions. The show also posts pictures and links via Instagram and Facebook to give visuals along with the story. Also nice to have 2 hosts who feel like I'd have a beer with them. Cheers, guys. Here's the 6th star, and they've got a little star emoji.
Nice.
Keep them coming. Thanks, Dominic JP.
That's a nice touch.
Finally, we've got one from Jackery21, which is entitled My Favourite Podcast by Far. Been listening since episode 1 and I'm a glad Patreon supporter. If you like hosts that have not only great chemistry but are also just lovable human beings, this is for you. From the movie reviews at the beginning to the spooky music throughout, everything works so well to create an amazing podcast. Oh, you guys warm my little heart. You genuinely warm my heart. I should have put in the review about me eating that M&M. Because then when it comes to it, I'll be like, when did that happen? But it was quite recent. So again, I apologise. Thank you for leaving us gorgeous reviews. I really appreciate it. It makes me really happy. If you enjoyed this week's episode, which was a bit of a mad episode, bit of a mad mix of stories this week.
Yes, and that is, I apologise for not sorting one out in time.
We forgive you. We are very busy people. Everyone knows that, you know, it's okay. Yeah, my laptop wasn't working either, so we very easily could have not had an episode this week, which would have been a disaster. But if you enjoyed this week's episode, please make sure and go and leave us a little review on Apple Podcasts. It doesn't really do anything for us in terms of like ratings or whatever, but what it does do is if people go and have a look, they're like, oh, this podcast has loads of good reviews, let's go listen to it, which is amazing.
And there's some podcasts I listen to that don't have as high a rating as us, which is quite nice. That
is quite nice as well. You can also leave us a review on our Facebook page, which is Real Life Ghost Stories Podcast. And you can join our Facebook group, which is RLGS Supergroup. The answer to the question is Emma and Dan. I'm Emma, he's Dan, obviously. And the Facebook group people are the best people in the world.
Yes, the most wholesome bunch.
Yeah, it's probably the only Facebook group in the world. This is not a challenge before I say this to any of you. I've not had to kick anybody out of the group. Ever. We don't want to either, but it's just demonstrative of how lovely they all are. I know another podcast that we listened to literally had to shut down their Facebook page recently because of the way people were behaving on it. Like, that's incredible. That's mad. So you guys are stunning. Like, I look forward to checking in on the Facebook group every day just to see what people are posting. It makes me really happy. You can also follow us on Instagram. I am on Instagram at Real Life Ghost Stories. Dan is on Instagram
at 50p Movie Club.
And Dan is currently doing 31 Days of Terror for October, where he is playing a different horror video game every night. You can find us on Twitter at Real Ghost Pod, and you can sign up to our Patreon page. The best way to support us in terms of keeping this podcast going is to support us on Patreon, which is patreon.com/Real Life Ghost Stories, where for $5 a month you get access to an extra, I think it's currently on 25 Tiny Tales paranormal episodes. Will be 26 on Monday. You also get access to the back catalogue of 50p Movie Club, which is a podcast that Dan and Will did about shitty movies that they watch and review. And you can access that for the $2 tier.
And it's coming back soon.
And I need people as well to stop apologising for not being Patreon subscribers.
Yeah, there's no expectation at all.
Absolutely none. I can't believe we have any Patreon subscribers. Never mind the fact that we have whatever, I don't even know what the number is at this stage. But yeah, so please don't apologise for not being a Patreon subscriber. I've subscribed to so many podcasts on Patreon and then had to delete my subscriptions because I just don't have the money to do it. And that is a genuine thing.
And that is fine, because we would rather you feed yourself and your children than paid us money to listen to me talk about rubbish movies, to be fair.
Yeah, that is very true. So if you do want to support us, by all means, we really appreciate it and we love you for it. But if you don't have that money, there is no expectation to do that.
The way you said that was really threatening. If you don't have that money...
I'm going to kneecap you. I'm rambling now. I'm really tired, so I'm just talking absolute bollocks.
Can I just say two kind of exciting things coming up, which I don't know when people will be able to hear, but on the 17th of October... I'm very excited to announce, and I'm not even sure you know this yet, that I'm going to be a guest on the Until 5 Gaming Till 5 podcast.
I did not know that. That's really exciting.
So I don't know when you'll hear it.
Why do you never tell me these things?
Because it just came to my mind and I was excited about it, because I was thinking about the other thing is that on the 19th, I'm hopefully going to record the first few episodes of the new series of 50p Movie Club with my new host.
Oh, are you going to say who your host is?
I think we've already said it, but I'm not going to say it again just in case I haven't.
Surprise. Okay, ooh, surprising. Okay, and on that note, gorgeous people, just to sum up today's episode, I apologise for eating an M&M on air. I'll never do it again. Bears can whistle.
Esmeralda had 3 men in a room and never slept in it again.
Esmeralda had 3 men in a room. I mean, she was a child, so I don't know how.
Well, ghosts as well, not just 3 random men.
Again, horrific. There was a big beast in Ross's ex-girlfriend's spare bedroom,
and
there was a naked man in the shower
with Anna.
Yeah,
which I've just remembered. I think is a girl's name because I've met a girl called Alla before.
Oh, can you please elaborate?
No, I've just met a girl.
Not you.
Oh,
if you are Alla and you are listening to this, can you please elaborate? And on that note, we shall see you.
Adios.